Hey, I am Mustafa Sharif. Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. This episode is going to be super cool, super crazy because it's going to be about Erasmus Student Network, ESN, and I have the pleasure to welcome George Maalouf to Urbanistica podcast to talk more about the topic. Hey, and welcome, George.
Hello, Mustafa. Thank you for having me here. Always a
Thank,
pleasure being here.
thank you so much for giving your time and also for sharing the student life with us.
It's my pleasure. Looking forward.
How are you doing, George?
I'm good. I'm good. Here in Stockholm, it's a bit cloudy and sunny mainly, so nothing to complain. How about you?
I am fine. I am actually not in Stockholm. I am in the south, in Helsingborg city. And also, I think we have almost the same weather, but so far so good.
Nice.
So how is it to be home
Uh,
24/7?
well, it's starting now. I approximately think our seventh week at home now, quarantined from work. So working from home, more or less routines, working out, taking it easy, meeting some friends here in the corridor, and mainly just having good time. Trying to have a good time at least, not to be completely bored. And you? How's it
Yes,
going for you?
it's going good also. And to be honest, I'm a bit bored to be at home. I love to meet people, to be in the city, but anyway, safety first, or
Of course,
health comes first.
of course, I totally agree
Yes.
with you.
Yes, George. So, how would you like to introduce yourself and please tell us more about what are you passionate about?
Yes, of course. Thank you. It's quite a quick intro I can give about myself. I'm 27 years old and I'm an engineer. I'm specialized in computer engineering, specialized in network and management, but my work right now is in IT for or test automation, and that's I work as a consultant. Before that, I moved to Sweden approximately 9 years ago, where I learned Swedish. Then I started my bachelor degrees in Sundsvall in Mittuniversitetet and graduated with an engineering degree from KTH. I have volunteered approximately 5 years of my life, 5 to 6 years, for with working with international students. And my last volunteer and still ongoing is actually ESN Stockholm.
Wow, that's a, how to say, a great intro.
Thank you.
So, tell us, what are you passionate about, George?
My passions are usually reading, watching documentaries, hanging out with some friends, working out. But I would say my main focus is always trying to be in a learning phase, trying to learn something new, try to do something useful of my time. And that's how I like to spend it, basically.
Yes. Do you have any specific areas that you want to learn or just in general?
Well, always general is good, but I would say as well as maybe the topics that interest me, such as psychology, history, human behavior, etc.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially you're an engineer.
Learning both skills, right? Soft and
Yes,
hard skills.
of course, of course. Well, George, we can start with Erasmus. If you
Yes.
brief us, what is it about?
Yes, Erasmus program. The Erasmus already stands for European Community Action Scheme for the Mobility of University Students, and that's why nobody remembers it, and we just call it Erasmus. Makes things easier. And it's a European-based one. It's the main idea, as I guess a lot of people know, is that it's the student exchange program. It was established back in 1987, and today it's quite known under Erasmus Plus. And it was launched in 2014 by the current European formatting, and it's for education, training, youth, sport, and gaining some skills along the way.
Yes. So is it for only students within Europe or even for other
Um,
countries?
well, the thing is that mainly Erasmus is for European or EU countries, but you have more programs out there present to work with students or bring students from different continents, such as maybe Australia or the US or Latin America, to come to Europe and have an exchange here as well.
Yeah, and do you know how long is the exchange period?
The exchange period is, of course, dependent on each country and where it is basically held. So, for example, in Sweden, we know that the start of the academic year is usually the last or the first Monday of September, usually, if I'm not mistaken, or the last Monday of August. I'm not 100% sure, and it ends in middle of January, and that's the academic year or semester for Sweden, for example. While if you had gone to Germany, maybe you would have started later and would have finished later, actually.
Yes, yes. And then after Erasmus, it started the ESN network.
More or less, yes, you can say that.
Yeah, and how was the story? How was the story?
Well, ESN, it's first of all, it stands for the Erasmus Student Network. It's a plan that was put in 1987. It's a plan to create extensive mobility scheme for higher education. And mobility schemes are mainly ideas of being able to go from a place to another, which comes from mobility or mobile, and experience something new. And it was approved by the European community. And it's part of an Erasmus program. Some universities even have delegated the work of ESN to the exchange to ESN in some countries. But the actual foundation was on October 89, and that's where the first section was founded in Utrecht in Netherlands.
Nice. So is it a kind of independent organization or it's related to an university?
It's very like a very hard question to answer specifically, but it's an organization, of course. It's for the interest of students. It's for to help them out, and basically, if you think about it, it's partially made out of with the European community or the European Commission because they do get some public grants there. But that's not only thing. They work a lot of projects and there's a lot of funding that comes in as well that helps them out. So sometimes even the universities themselves give them fundings to
Okay,
the
okay.
ESN sections.
Yes, that's great. How many sections do we have here in Sweden?
We have 15 sections here in Sweden. Sections are usually local based. And for Sweden, we have 15, and we have one national level, which is the SN Sweden level.
Is it like this that for each university there is an ESN, or for each city there is an ESN section?
No, unfortunately not. That would have been something we would love to have, but today we have lots of universities who do not have an ESN section. Maybe, for example, Mid Sweden University or Umeå or I don't know. Some Jönköping maybe doesn't, but I don't. I know there is an ESN Jönköping section, but I'm not really sure if they're correlated to the university there directly. But no, unfortunately, it's not every university has an ESN section. Sometimes even we can have several ESN sections inside one city, but not necessarily with every university there.
Okay, so there is not a fixed rule to how to have section.
No, the main idea of a section is started by people who are interested in joining the SN network as a whole. So they can send in a application, and with the right circumstances and the right work, or the right conditions, then they are able to start actually in
Okay.
ESN section. Yes.
Yeah. And what are the different levels in ESN in organization, let's say?
Yes, we have three main, excuse me, three main distinct levels, and it's called an local level or a national level or an international level. So, for example, ESN Stockholm, we're specified to Stockholm area, to Stockholm University, KTH, Karolinska, for example. This is called a local level. While we ourselves, we meet twice a year, we elect our national board, which is called ESN Sweden, and they represent us more on a national scale, and they are the correspondent between the local section and the international section. and the internet or the international community. And the international community is called then ESN International. And within ESN International, there's a lot of things happening there. It's usually consistent of a board of 5 positions, but there are even more activities and groups that are working in ESN International as well.
Yes, that's very interesting. And like in all these different levels, are
Yes.
all the people still studying or some of them graduated?
Oh no, no, definitely. We are not related just to people who are studying. Me myself, I've been in ESN since September 2017, if I remember it correctly, and I graduated June 2018. So I graduated around a year and a half ago, but I still enjoy every moment of ESN, and I'm pretty sure lots of people are done with their studies but still like to be part of ESN.
Yeah, so are you a senior ESNer now?
I wouldn't call myself that. I would still call myself as a learning student or learning ESNer.
And how is the structure inside, let's say, a section? Let's talk about ESN Stockholm.
Yes, we can take it specifically to ESN Stockholm. ESN Stockholm was previously known as ESN SU, but we changed the name approximately a year and a half ago. We cover the biggest part of the universities in Stockholm, where we strive always to make our students have fun here and be feeling welcome. Uh, Now, our structure internally is that we have a board, and it's consistent of 5 positions: the president, the vice president, a treasurer, a secretary, and a media communication manager. Aside from the board positions, there's something called local coordinators, and they are people who volunteer to ease the work and the flow of the section. So, an example is that there is one of the biggest national events, or the biggest, sorry, national event of Sweden, yes, in Sweden. It's called Sea Battle. And Sea Battle is an idea of taking a boat to Tallinn or Riga, depending on which semester. And people join there for 2 nights, have a good time, spend time together, and it's approximately 1,600 to 1,700 students on a boat.
Wow.
And yeah, it's quite big. And for example, to coordinate between the national level and the local level, we have an coordinator, and that coordinator is, for example, called a sea battle coordinator. So they are the liaison between the section and the and the national level, for example. These are coordinate positions, and the internal structure deeper than that would be that we have 4 actual committees, and these committees have specific tasks to achieve to keep the section flowing in a very timely manner. And for example, one of the committees would be called, for example, the sponsorship committee. And the sponsorship committee is out there trying to always, or partnership committee, to be more specific, are trying to bring in more partners. They're trying to promote ESN while we promote their businesses as well on the site.
Yes. What are the other committees, if you
Yes,
can?
there are 4 committees, and the 4 committees are basically the activity party committee. The name talks for itself, where it's a team of brilliant people who come up with brilliant ideas for new activities. And sometimes it amazes me the amount of creativity that exists there. As well as we have a communication committee, where they are the people that are the interface between us and the students, publishing our events, making them very aesthetically pleasing, making it attractive, promoting nice topics. We're raising awareness. Sometimes we have campaigns ongoing there. There is the partnership committee, as I said previously, and we have the final committee. It's called external relation committee, and the external relation committee is focused mainly on promoting awareness and doing activities that promote awareness.
Yes.
Such an example would be that we have Fika in the Dark. Fika in the Dark basically is the title of an event that we have, and the main purpose of it is to raise awareness towards the difficulties of impairedness. And what we do is we blindfold our students. Of course, everything is uh, consented upon. So we ask them, is it okay? Naturally. And once they're blindfolded, we pour them a cup of coffee, so a few cookies and some food, and we let them have a fika together. And they start realizing that it's actually harder than you think because you try to remember where your cup is or what you're eating. And it's very interesting because as long as we don't see the food and what we smell are two different things. So when they're smelling it, they could tell you, for example, oh, it smells sweet, but it's actually cheese, for example.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so it's a kind of a test, and afterwards people are aware, and this is are more thinking about it, and that's part of the external relation committee that they bring activities of this type to the section.
Yeah, that's very great approach. Um, as you mentioned, like the different communities and the values that you're creating, it's
Mm.
the organization by itself is very well structured. My question is, are you getting paid for this?
No, it's completely volunteer based. We get nothing in return almost. The only thank you, or let's say the payment that we make to our volunteers, is that when there are trips organized with the travel agency that we have a collaboration with, every 20 tickets sold, for example, we can get one seat assigned for free. So if there are some ESNers who are interested to go to Lapland, they may get the chance to go there as well. Or some of the activities are paid by the ESN section for our members to join.
Yes, and so in the let's say in the end of the
Mm.
season, you're plus and slash minus zero.
Yes, because it's in organization, so we're not allowed to make profit.
Yes, of course. And tell me, how much does it cost to be a member of ESN? For me,
Well,
let's
if
say for me as a student.
as you, for a student, and decide to buy an ESN card, the ESN card is today at ESN Stockholm 70 crowns. The benefits are quite a lot since ESN card is not just a card local to Stockholm, but it's an international card. So that ESN card that you can be used in several European countries with discounts varying from maybe 15% discount on a ticket plus luggage for Ryanair flights, for example, or international hosteling, you get a discount there, or The Economist newspaper, you can also get discounts. It's They're striving and they're expanding their partnerships quite a lot in ESN card for the ESN card.
Yes. And if I might ask you, so in your case, you graduated, now you're working. What is keeping you still with ESN, especially you're not getting paid?
Yes, for me, it never has been about the money, honestly. It's my volunteer work has been for 5 to 6 years. And during these 5 to 6 years, I've worked with international students and organized, so I never got paid. It has always been the passion of doing it and the fun of doing it and the excitement of meeting new people and exchanging a lot of cultural differences and learning and experiences in general. That's the main reward I like to get from participating in ESN.
Yeah, so the experience worth more than money.
Definitely. For me, yes.
Yeah, and how big is the team in ESN Stockholm?
In ESN Stockholm, we haven't been that big, but we haven't been that small. We have varied from 10 to 12%, sometimes up to 40. So, but as said, since it's volunteer based, there is no way of guaranteeing a certain number of students or participants to be there. It's up to you personally to decide how much you want to give.
Yeah, so do you know how many are you now? Let's say because the date now is 2020 in May,
Yeah.
1st of May.
Yes, I would have said maybe around 25 volunteers. I'm not 100% sure because we have people who are less active, people that are more active. So it's a bit hard to calculate, but around the 20.
Yeah, and is there any criteria for people to join the team?
The main criteria we would require are maybe two or three things. One, that you're social. Two, that you understand the responsibility if you decide to join ESN. And three is to bring good energy, bring good vibes to the table. That's always appreciated.
And everyone is welcome, no matter
Of course,
background.
we It does not matter. We are a big bowl of people mixed from different origins, a bit like the US, if you wish to say that it's completely mixed. But we're mixed like people that are Swedes, people that have a different background that came maybe to Sweden half a year ago, or that came 10 years ago, that are Middle Eastern, that are far from the Far East, that are Europeans. It does not matter in the end for us.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful mix. So now I wanted to highlight something because when I was part of ESN and when I
We
go to
miss
work,
you.
thank you so much. I'm coming back after the
Good.
COVID-19.
We would like to have you back.
Thank you so much. So like sometimes when I go to work or let's say meet other people that not really know about ESN, they most tell me that, oh, it's you just party and you're just having fun and so on. And sometimes it takes a lot of time to explain what is it about. So today I would love to take opportunity and to ask you to highlight what are the different activities that ESN do or organize. You mentioned that the blindness fika, so but I know there are so many different other activities, so please share with us.
Of course, of course. Thank you very much. This is a very important question that we have been tackling a lot with the SN actually, and we have lots of uh, like. If you want to go into the deep of ESN, it's much, much more than just the parties that people promote. But since that's the fun part mainly, or the thing that you kind of tend to remember or not remember, depends on how heavy the night has been. But no, definitely ESN is much more. We, for example, part of our I'm going to start off a bit with an overview of the ideas of ESN before I can dig in a bit deeper on the ESN Stockholm level. But ESN is about, it has its causes, and each cause has a certain goal behind it. And to name a few causes is, for example, culture. It's where we try to teach or exchange values, social behaviors of particular group of people at a particular time. We like to experience life on the diverse scales. One of the biggest ESN slogans that has been used for many, many years is unity in diversity and diversity in unity. So basically, it's just that because we're so diverse and so different backgrounds, there's a unity for us that we always strive for the same thing. And we strive for the well being and the mobility and the health, the skills, the social inclusion. So, for example, for us, we believe in ESN. When I say for us, because I feel part of this network and I feel part of this bigger organization, it's that we promote active citizenship, which includes actively partaking in finding solutions for current problems, thinking about the environmental sustainability in the future, how today we are living our life, and how can we raise awareness towards the problems that have been circling around us. So when you think about all these causes, you don't think about party. That's not the first thing that will pop up in your mind. You will think, okay, how can I do something to promote this awareness? And sometimes, as we said, we have the fika in the dark as an activity, but not to make things always too serious. We always like, for example, to organize sports activities, hikes, self-defense classes, activities that are socially or culturally related to Sweden, for example, going to the sauna and taking a dip in the cold water afterwards, ice skating, museum visits, quiz nights. But at the same time, yes, we do have parties, we do have pub crawls, but that's not the main focus that we have.
Mm. And how much preparation there is behind all these activities? I imagine like to tackle the different issues that going on around in the city or in general, like you mentioned, the climate or other social things. So you need to be updated to do a lot of research, right?
Yes. For example, for the climate, sometimes you don't have the time or the resource, or maybe you're not knowledgeable enough about every topic. So, we have had a partnership with Symbiosis, which is a activist group in Stockholm University for raising awareness regarding our ecosystem and our environment in general. And we do a collaboration where we, like, for example, have a lecture booked for 50 students where they can come and learn about their different recycling rules in Sweden. When they come from international, it's different international backgrounds, and it's quite different maybe from a country to another, how the recycling is done and what are the recycling principles. So this is maybe a way for us to promote this, but at the same time, sometimes you need to do the research yourself. So it's definitely up to you as a volunteer. We decide together to make an activity. One person is responsible, or two or three, for that activity, and how they plan it is totally up to them. But always we would like to have a benefit out of it. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it was
mhm,
really great what you shared with us. So ESN is more not only about party, but more about like sharing knowledge and raising awareness about different things going around.
ex- exactly. For example, one of the social values that we can bring is that we try to have a social engagement where it's mainly not just international students hanging out with international students. We are very much looking forward to have local students from Sweden that like to be here and even more give a share their image and their view of Sweden to international students. And if we work together to that goal, so this is our social inclusion goals, for example.
Yeah, and this is was very or still a very important point that I would like to discuss with you.
That,
Because it felt that there is a kind of, let's say, barrier between the Swedish students and the exchange students, not during the university time, but like after university, like let's say after work or when the like class is finishing. So,
mhm.
uh, what do you think is the behind this that the Swedish students not really interact with the exchange students?
Honestly, I mean, we have had that question for a very long standing time, and there is no good answer because it's very individual, I would say. But I think mainly is that the association of maybe the Swedish society to ESN and their Erasmus students is that, oh, it's just internationals here to party, and that's it. And that is a bit of a bubble, that if you grew up in Stockholm and you have the same group of friends and you've gone to school with the same people and you've hanged out at university with a certain group of people, but you haven't interacted with international students, you never get to know deeper than that. Okay, this is maybe more than just the parties, or they're just more than here for 6 months or a year, where you can build long lasting friendships. And I think this is one of the main problems, that there's a stigma or there is a misunderstanding about what ESN stands for in general. And we always are happy to welcome our Swedish students to be part of our community and part of the organizing teams as well. And this could be another reason why they don't join our activities, is maybe because they feel like this is awkward. This is not a place for them to be present, but definitely not. We always look for people who are willing to join us, whatever the background.
Yeah, and also I think it's a great opportunity that, like for people living in Sweden or Swedish student, that the world is all the different cultures here in your city. So just take opportunity, talk to them, exchange your culture, knowledge, and who knows what's can be happen in the future.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I mean, I believe that today with the internet and social media, and especially during this COVID-19 time, where we see the surge of a huge amount of social settings or social tools that you're able to use, as Zoom or Teams or whatever, and the accessibility that it's we're interconnected. We're very interconnected, and the fact that you can have that on the tip of your finger to know the different cultures is amazing. But at the same time, you can actually meet these people from the different cultures, and it's quite interesting to see like how you can converge on many points and you can diverge from different points. But it's quite
Yeah, I totally agree that the big differences between the having the digital interaction and a physical one. Because
mm,
if I might tell a small story from my Erasmus in Milano, before I go to Milano, so I did some videos, digital video before I go there, and I felt okay, that's fine. But when I was there, it's some completely something different. I love that time, and it's changed a lot of me, made me become better, wiser. So I'm really grateful. Let's say firstly for ESN Milano, and then also for ESN Stockholm to have to say to open my eye that there this exists, and it's not only about parties. It's much more like there are so many different values.
Yes, of course. And that's something I totally agree with you because uh, you've been to Milano and you've had your exchange there. And the fact that you've done your exchange gave you the opportunity to, one, experience Italian culture, two, living in Italy and how it is in Milan, and three is you've met probably a lot of international students and you've learned probably a lot also in the process of, okay, this culture thinks this way, or maybe this culture is a bit different. And at the same time, we all come back to one point that we're all living in the same world. We're all connected. We're all here to for the same things, to be good, to have a social engagement, to be healthy, for a well-being, for an environmental understandings, etc., etc.
Yes, and one more also memory from now I'm gonna a lot of memories from Milano.
Good.
So I made a Facebook post after coming back to Stockholm and just with a statistic about what I did. So it was like together we SN, I traveled to 16 different cities, not only in Italy, but in Europe. And I also get to know 250 person from like all the world, from Canada, from Sydney, from let's say, I don't know, like was so many different cities. And now after, for some people say, let's say if friendship dies after this month, when you finish your Erasmus, everything finished. But actually, I don't really agree with that because now I'm still working on so many different projects in architecture magazine together with different students that I study with them in Milan. But now we are doing it professionally. So it's really great to keep the friendship, the boundary. And yes, to be honest, I love ESN. So George, your greetings to the team and thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You see, the fact that it makes you smile and makes you happy to remember all this is the value that you get back from being in Erasmus or part of ESN or whatever volunteer that is trying to unify this global world. It's something quite nice, I think. It's
Yes.
brings a lot of value.
Exactly. But back to the topic that the interaction between the Swedish students and also the international students. Do you think that Sweden has student nation, which is like section, that
Mhm.
also makes the Swedish students stick to this section instead of going to ESN section?
That's a very valid point. A lot of the nations, as you call them, or if you want to call them as well as student unions or whatever it is, yeah, it definitely it can be something that makes it a bit harder and more challenging for us, especially if I'm going to talk on the ESN Stockholm scale, because there are different sections in Sweden which fare very well with the Swedish students. But for us, for example, at ESN Stockholm, we have a close collaboration with Stockholm University Student Union. But yeah, definitely we don't have the same amount of students, Swedish students who participate in their events via contra our parties or our events or our social gatherings. And that can be a problem because, yeah, as you said, they could be more confined to that particular group of or that particular organization. But at the same time, the more we promote and the more we show our name and show the different aspects of ESN, I think we have good chances of recruiting more Swedish students to our side and to our team, which we will be very happy about.
Yeah. Do you see any possibilities that ESN collaborate with the Swedish nation or sections somehow?
Yes, we are trying to do that. Like we have a few events every year that are organized in collaboration between us and Stockholm University Student Union, as said. But uh, I think that recently we've been in contact with the Medicinska Förening in Karolinska, and that's quite nice. If we can start a collaboration together, that's something we would really like to explore and see how we can benefit both parties in that process. And a bit of a slow process. It takes a bit of time, especially now with the COVID-19, that it's not so much happening. But for future collaborations, we would definitely be looking into more nations or organizations. Definitely.
Yeah, and this raises a new discussion today. We have a lot of discussions. So if I understand right or correctly, so the majority of people in ESN Stockholm are not Swedish, and this might affect the experience that you deliver to the to the exchange students. So do you believe that you deliver 100% Swedish experience, an experience from Sweden, from the heart of Sweden?
Definitely not. I would say we're not at that level of being able to deliver 100% or close to 100% Swedish society or Swedish culture, but we try to promote it quite a lot. Part of it is fikas, especially that it's one of the main things in Sweden.
By the way, what is fika for the listeners that listening that are not from Sweden?
Yes, for the listeners not in Sweden, fika is basically the afternoon tea, but instead of a tea, it's usually a coffee and a cinnamon bun, but it can be any type of sweet that you like. But let's say a snack at a cafe or with friends or wherever you want. Yeah, so definitely like we try to promote maybe and try to give this different or share what is Sweden and what are the traditions in Sweden at the same time. When we have volunteers that are Swedes and they join our activities, then a lot of our students likes to come up and talk to them and try to understand the difference and the different cultures. Definitely, definitely. So yeah, as said, we try to promote, we try to teach about Sweden and try to see the different cultures present in Sweden, but maybe we're not up to the best level that we could be.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have a Swedish students to share the full experience also and to represent the country as well, or the
Of course.
culture, let's say.
Definitely. And I would definitely encourage Swedish students or the Swedish listeners to think about joining ESN Stockholm.
Yeah, it will be so great to have them. And talking about the partners that ESN
Mm.
is partnering with, so what is the value that they gain out of this partnership?
Yes, we offer a range of activities. We can hold activities at these particular venues. We can promote that venue, even like by bringing in students. Then you are increasing your gross customer or your exposure, and that's what our partners benefit. And at the same time, we benefit from the fact that if we get maybe a certain discount or if we can come to a collaboration of using their venue for a karaoke night, for example, it's a trade-off in the end. We gain something, they gain something, but in the end, it's a partnership to promote ESN and promote them at the same time.
Yeah, and how, let's say for a student that wants to join ESN or for the potential partners, how do they get in touch with you?
They can email us directly. They can call us. I mean, we're quite available. So I would say, or even contact us through Facebook, whatever way they would like. We are available to listen at any time.
Yeah, that's great. And in terms of the venues, how do you find the venues? Do you need to pay for them?
It depends. It depends on what type of activities. We try to always not pay. Since we're an organization, that means we don't have an endless resources. That means that we have to calculate specifically what we can pay and cannot pay. But we recently have started a collaboration in the student residence in Stockholm called Lapis. And there is a tenant organization here which are willing to collaborate with us. We would love to use their venues where we would be there and they would be able to talk about their organization and talk what they do and a trade-off. See, so we get that venue, for example, we do an activity, students have fun, and the students get to know them as well. That's how we try to function. Sometimes we have to pay for a venue, but if it's something that we believe is worth it, then we will definitely pursue.
Yes, yes, very. As I find it very challenging that.
It is a bit challenging because you have to work with the tools that you have, and you have to work, especially that Stockholm is a bit more expensive city than a lot of the cities in the world. So usually renting maybe a location can go up for a few thousand crowns for a couple of hours, and that's a lot of money for us.
Yeah. What are the other challenges that you're facing as ESN Stockholm?
One of the challenges, as always, is that we strive for more recruitments. We always want to recruit, and that has always been a problem because a lot of our volunteers are students who came on exchange, so for half a year, or 2 years, but eventually they have to leave. And we believe that changing the team all the time is good because you get fresh blood, you get people who are motivated even more. But sometimes you would like to have a sustainability of a longer duration of these students being here and these volunteers, because sometimes you have people that from are amazing that give out 100% of themselves to ESN, and you lose them. So the recruitment has been always a big issue. And the other issue I would say is that trying to grow partners. Sadly, for a lot of the businesses today present in Sweden and Stockholm, when they think about international students, they think about students who are not willing to pay or students who don't have money, that there's no real gain out of it. But it's not only about that. I wouldn't say it's only gained. It's the fact that you have an exposure, that you have brought maybe something extra for these students. It doesn't maybe cost you that much, but for them it would mean the whole world. So the two main issues has always been partners and recruitment.
Yeah. And do you discuss these issues with let's say, the national level, or how do you deal with them?
There are techniques, and there are forums, there are like seminars that are given by the higher levels of ESN to help promote and talk about ESN. One of the great tools is, for example, ESN in CV, where they teach you how to use ESN in your CV and how you can benefit from it to the maximum. But yeah, what we try to do is learn, trial and error, learning, seeing new opportunities. Our team recently has went out to and during these lecture times, they have promoted ESN, and that has given us a bit more coverage. So we're trying to learn new techniques, but at the same time, try new things through trial and error. And I think these are the best ways to learn.
Yeah, of course, learning, testing, and how to
Yeah.
say, developing or enhancing.
Yeah, exactly. Review, enhanced, you know.
Yes. So, George, we talked a lot about the different values, both economical, social. So, if you summarize, like, what are the values that ESN bring actually to a city? So, what values you bring to Stockholm?
I would say the values that we bring to Stockholm is one, exposure from an international perspective to Stockholm, seeing that Stockholm can be a very advanced city, a very smart city to a certain extent, maybe. Um, and promoting the Swedish culture. These are what we can bring, for example, to Stockholm, maybe even very small, but some economical gain, maybe. But as a social, we would say that I believe that this is my strong belief, at least, that having international students or international cultures present in one place is just an enriching experience where you get to be enriched to enrich that particular area, the people around it, the different experiences, the learning. All these are points that maybe are not so explicitly felt or seen, but are there. When you have students who come here and they like it so much that they stay here, they say, okay, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to try to work in Sweden, I'm going to live in Sweden. You're benefiting Sweden maybe with one extra engineer, one extra doctor, one extra, I don't know, social scientist or whatever it is. But the fact that they're still here and willing to stay here means something, that there is a good cause, that there are good people out there.
Yeah. So, the values are both in the short run and the long run.
That exactly.
Yeah. And now a super special, let's say, question. It's also due to what I'm working with, and also for the podcast and the podcast listeners. How do you define a smart city?
Actually, Mustafa, to answer that question, I had to do a bit of Google research because my knowledge of smart cities is quite limited. So I took the time and read a bit about it. And you could correct me at any time where I say anything wrong because
It's like not something wrong, but it's more about like how do you imagine the future city? So it could like it will be interesting to hear it from your point of view.
Since I'm a computer engineer and specialized in IT in general, so for me, a smart city is a city that has a lot of technology and IoT or Internet of Things present in it. It's a city that has smart infrastructure, that it measures, for example, the amount of energy being spent in a certain area and knows, okay, where is it going? As well as it's a city that is aware of their ecosystem, their possibilities of renewable energy, their possibilities of producing power, etc., etc. That
So
is,
more for you, it's more about it's using it's a high-tech city using technology to take care
yeah,
of the climate and just
uh,
measure whatever we
exactly.
do.
I think that's part of being interconnected. That to build good infrastructure today, you need a lot of data, and you need a lot of data to analyze. And once you have used the tools to analyze these data, then you can come with better solutions and see where you have a lack. And this is, for me, how a city develops by always reviewing and doing better what they have done previously.
Yeah. Do you think or do you experience that Stockholm is a smart city?
I do believe so. I think that like last weekend, I was at Nora Djurgården, and I was amazed. I did not know that it was such uh, a green and like infrastructure and a very advanced part of Stockholm.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Nora Djurgården is really great project actually in Stockholm, and yeah, for people who are interested in that, so just Google it and you will find really good, let's say, different ways of taking care of both people and the environment.
yeah, exactly. So I think, yeah, Stockholm has a lot of potential and is a very good example for a smart city.
Yes. And George, it was really great to talk to you from the point of view of the organizers that hosting the international students. So I believe that I'm going to have an episode with your friend who is exchange student in Sweden.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, and then we will talk about the experience from an exchange student point of view. So it will be super great. So thank you so much for connecting us, George.
Ah, definitely, definitely. That's another benefit of ESN, I would say.
One more new friend.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
So, George, what is the next step for you?
Well, for ESN level, at least, my next step is I'm gonna still be there for a while. I'm gonna help out with my knowledge and try to bring the best of my experience to the table.
Great. And personally?
Personally, waiting out this pandemic, hoping that it's a learning experience for all of us, that we get the time to reflect on many things and reflect on the lifestyle that we had pre-COVID-19. And I would like to reflect and invite people to reflect on their lives post-COVID-19, on what they could improve and what we could actually maybe bring to the society again. And the next step for me is planning that out.
Yeah, that's great. So, do you think it's gonna be a big change in your life after the or post COVID-19?
Definitely one of the things I would love to strive for to make my life different post COVID-19 is thinking about that we need to go back to a certain extent to a bit of a more minimalistic living, because if we look at the lifestyle that we were leading pre COVID-19 and why the whole world crashed, is the fact that we have been consumerisms to the very high extent of always in need of buying and spending money. And sitting at home and living my life here and looking at the fact that I am completely fine with spending much less money and just enjoying my time with activities that don't require payment all the time is something I would love to keep with me and think about in the future, that we don't need all of this extra things in our lives to feel better. We can live happily with what we just have and be thankful for it, because
Yeah.
lots of people, unfortunately, are not that lucky in their lives.
Yeah, very interesting reflection. I would love that when I come back to Stockholm, we talk more about it and hopefully share it as well.
I would love that. It would be a pleasure to always have a discussion and talks with you. You know that.
Thank you so much, George. And I really appreciate your time for this recording this podcast episode. And now I would love that you summarize what we talked about, some of your reflection in three takeaway messages to people who's listening to you, to ESN, Stockholm, and also to Urbanistica podcast.
Yes, of course. I actually uh, have already three in mind, but I could possibly even extend myself to four, where I think
Of
that
course, you're more than
if I'm
welcome.
around, yes, if I'm allowed, thank you.
Of course.
The first one, we've talked about mainly ESN, join ESN Stockholm. I promise you there will be no regrets. It's going to be fun. It's going to be worth it. And take it as a guarantee from me. The second takeaway message for me would be that I would like to learn more about urban cities and how it works. And the other day, I actually listened to two episodes of your podcast and Urbanista podcast, and I thought it was quite interesting. And I would definitely encourage people to listen more. And finally, take the time to learn and review your life prior to the pandemic, during this pandemic, and post this pandemic, how you would like to change.
Wow. Thank you so much, George. And
Thank
now
you.
it's time for the three hashtags, as you know.
Yes, the three hashtags. I actually that unfortunately my hashtags are number one, ESN Stockholm. Second hashtag is I'm not good with hashtags, and my third hashtag is Mustafa fight to win always.
Very interesting hashtag. Do you think we're gonna get trendy when we publish it?
Well, I do hope so. I do hope so.
Again, George, it's always interesting, joyful, and inspirational to talk and discuss different topics with you. Thank you so much for giving your time and experience for us.
Thank you, Mustafa, for being the host, such a wonderful host, easy to talk with you, and always a pleasure meeting you or getting you on a phone call. So hopefully, when you're back in Stockholm, we would get the time to meet and have a proper dinner or lunch and discuss further these topics.
Yes, of course, and also planning new activities.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. We had also a project to have the dinner in Lapis on the lake, right?
Oh
Together with the
yes,
others.
true, true, true. We're still waiting for your chicken curry that you have promised that you do an excellent one. So I'm very looking
Yes,
forward.
yes, yes, of course. So thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. Please don't forget to follow Instagram account, LinkedIn, and also subscribe the YouTube channel. By the way, also the ESN homepage will be in the description down if or up. It depends on the podcast application you use. So if you have any great story that make our city smarter, please contact me. I am Mustafa Sharif. Have a good life.